This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome. You are listening to Speak Up Effective Communication. I'm your host, Craig O'Neill. For this episode, I feel particularly inspired by the 80th anniversary of D-Day back on June 6, 2024. People around the world paused to commemorate the Allied invasion of Normandy, also known as Operation Overlord. D-Day was, of course, on June 6, 1944. That is when the Allied soldiers launched their assault to liberate Europe from Nazi tyranny. And I'll explain more shortly. And I'm going to introduce you to my friend from my home Toastmasters Club, Grand Rapids Toastmasters Club 404. My friend Evan Wisner is with me today. And I know you are going to appreciate hearing from Evan just as much as I do. But first, a word from our sponsors. Ready to reduce stress and start paying yourself and your team well? Achieve your goals with the Institute's personalized coaching. Visit wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. AutoFlow is your partner in technology. With AutoFlow, enhance your client interactions in a single thread before, during, and after the visit. To see how AutoFlow makes it simple, visit AutoFlow.com. Are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your auto repair shop? Say goodbye to the chaos and hello to streamlined efficiency with AutoLeap, the #1 all-in-one auto repair shop management software. With AutoLeap, you can sell more, save precious time, and delight your customers with every interaction. Are you ready to convert clients to members? AppFueled specializes in creating custom apps tailored specifically for auto repair businesses. Get started today by visiting appfueled.com and build your first app like a pro. Your trusted companion, ShopDog Marketing, is right by your side, attracting the best customers and building long-term growth. Call ShopDog Marketing today or visit shopdogmarketing.com. We're discussing the 80th anniversary of D-Day. There's a good chance you've seen some articles and stories and quotes in this past week. I came across a few stories, and one of which I shared particularly. I'm here with Evan Wisner, my friend from Toastmasters. Evan is an Army veteran who served in Afghanistan. He's a social worker and an American Legion member and is involved with multiple veteran service organizations. Hello, Evan. How about you take a second and give our audience some background on you?
Thank you, Craig. Great to be here. My name is Evan Wisner. I am an Army veteran. I served in Afghanistan. I'm also a social worker, and I work with veterans and have worked with veterans. I'm also an American Legion member and involved with multiple veteran service organizations. I also have a very personal connection to a lot of this, as both my grandfathers served in World War II. And I have a lot of family that served in the military. Growing up, had a lot of friends, especially post 9/11 era, that served in the military. And then I myself went and served. And all of that has definitely brought a sense of importance to this very particular issue.
Yeah. No, this is one of those topics that the 80th anniversary, this one's hitting a little bit different than the regular annual anniversary of this particular event. And I think when we discussed this, what was standing out, especially in the story of the Army Rangers, is there was really one guy left from that unit. And it was touching because one of the other current day Army Ranger guys was there with this guy who served with the other guy's grandfather. So this last person that was there that served with his grandfather, he got to commemorate that event with that. And it was interesting, but these guys are going away quick. Unfortunately, we're losing these veterans fast.
Before, when we spoke on the phone, I'm very grateful that you asked me to do this, because I sort of, in the back of my mind, was kind of always aware, like, hey, we're losing them, and every year there's a little bit less, and like, that's the natural course. But then you asking me really helped me focus and take count of just what it is that we are losing and what is happening with that generation passing away.
Yeah, well, you're the ideal person to do this conversation with as an emotional intelligence expert and a war veteran yourself who has a direct connection to some of these events. I think it gives you a unique perspective that I think our audience in particular is going to appreciate hearing. So thank you, Evan. And I want to say this too, with Evan being here. Evan's a friend from my Toastmasters Club, and you will all hear much about Toastmasters as you already have on this show. It's a club for public speaking. And I remember that I joined just a few meetings before Evan started coming into one of our mutual friends, Shane Sievers, a big influencer in the club. I remember the first day Evan comes in there, and he's a guest speaker for the club himself. And it was just like, oh, wow. It was my first experience getting to hear from another who I consider a professional speaker, being able to give me a perspective outside of my usual network.
Well, thank you, Craig. I appreciate that.
Oh, dude, thank you. And this has been part of the fun is when people like you get to come and talk to an audience, in this particular case, largely the aftermarket and auto repair, a lot of times we get kind of onto our own topics and it narrows.
That's true everywhere.
It absolutely is. But no, thank you so much for joining me. And it's been great to be able to work with you in Toastmasters as well. I think that's one of the things I'd like to mention immediately here is that guys like Evan come along and you get to hear them speak, but you also get to speak in front of them. And we get to have that mutual professional development that occurs through real feedback, real advice, while simultaneously learning from their vast experiences in the world. It's really a precious thing that I hope everyone gets a chance to experience in their local areas.
I totally agree. And I was going to say, I feel like I have learned just as much from you and watching you speak and watching you go through that process in Toastmasters. I feel like that has been one of the greatest benefits is our friendship and this relationship and the connection that we found through that organization.
Absolutely. No, and thanks. And I'm so glad that that connection has now brought you right here, right now. So let's go into this a little bit. Now, one of the things that we discussed is this fact alone is really startling to me is like almost all the veterans who would be present for any event now commemorating anything that happened in World War II, they're all well into their 90s at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of sobering and also just wow that, like I sent you that article about that veteran who went to Normandy and he was over 100 and got married.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, yeah, what? It's slowly sliding away.
It is. That was a refreshing story, too. Both that guy and the lady was from France, if I remember correctly in that story. They had such a great sense of humor and such a positive outlook, and they seem still so full of positive energy in this thing. And commemorating this stuff, man, it's like they understood something else about the events that happened and why it's so important to moving forward with some positivity, having that positive outlook is probably to him, I suspect, what a great way to honor those people he served with.
Definitely. As you kind of pointed out, like there was 16 million who served in World War II and a little over 100,000 remain. And that's every day. Every day we're losing some.
Every day. Yeah. I was having that conversation with my daughter this morning too. And to put it into context for her, I explained this point as well. I said, listen, I was talking to my daughter, Judy, I'm 40, will be 41. From my birthday, with the day I was born, to D-Day, there's less time between my birthday and D-Day than there is from my birthday to now. Just to give that context, it's like, oh, I don't know if that made her think I'm really old. Or if it put the events into context, like this is barely 2 generations have come into this world since these events transpired, but now 2 more generations have been stacked onto that. And 80, let's just call it 80 years, because it's 80 years, is not a lot of time at all.
And also so incredibly much.
It is, because it's long enough for a whole generation.
It's like nothing and so much.
Yeah, we could forget, we could have generations learn something new. The world hasn't changed that much since then. Technology sure has and everything else. But golly, tiny, tiny frame of history and a long time at the same time. We're losing them quick. What are we going to do with this now? Why is it hitting us differently? And what should we be doing, if anything, differently now? How do we honor this? How do we look at this? How do we discuss this in a way that's going to carry it forward?
All great questions and definitely things that we need to think about.
Now, there's a line, and I think that this was the one that we both were sharing further articles on this stuff. And there's one line that came really poignantly, that living veterans, to recognize them as tangible interpreters of what has happened. Tangible interpreters. That tangibility, I think, is the key thing. That's what we're losing here.
Oh, most assuredly. It's any veteran knows that what actually happened and how it gets reported, what the story is, what gets told is like very different. And you can talk to almost any veteran from any war, any era, and they're going to be like, yeah, that's what was said, but that's not really what happened.
Well, yeah, you're suspect to revisionist history. That's what's coming in here in some cases, wouldn't it? And that revision can happen quickly today.
For sure. It is something that, as we're speaking, you have to take into consideration that all history is kind of revision history because it's all written by the victors, right? And we won. So how that narrative is being told and what we've been told and what we understand of it, you have to look at through that lens. America was not perfect during that time. There was racism and segregation, even in the military. There were Nazi sympathizers in the government at that time. And despite all of those challenges, that generation, they still rose to greatness and did something that had never been done before.
Yeah. At least hasn't been done since World War I.
The difference between World War I and World War II is that World War I was kind of fought to a standstill. And so it was just throwing bodies into a meat grinder. Whereas like World War II, there was a clear way to win an objective and victory. And like they did it. They met that challenge and defeated the enemy.
At a tremendous scale.
Across the world. And I mean, World War I obviously was terrible and did involve a lot of people, but it is nothing compared to what happened in World War II and the scope of how many people it impacted.
Yeah, was it 14% served?
Yeah. So just looking at the numbers really puts in context the difference in like the military today versus what happened during World War II. So 16 million individuals served in the military during that period of time. Out of, at that time, 113 million. So like by the math, that's 14% of the US population fought in World War II. Today, 3.3 million of 330 million serve. That is less than 1%. We owe that to them because they did this incredible thing and established the United States as a superpower. And because of that, we can maintain peace and security with a much smaller portion of our population. 20 years of war.
Yeah, 20 years, the global war on terror. In that entire 20 years is still that 1%.
Yeah, that 1% is what has fought for. And I mean, obviously the Vietnam and Korea and stuff, there were like different call-ups, different points. But in the modern war on terror, in the 20 years that we were at war, a staggering statistic that most people aren't very familiar with. There were Allied casualties, there were supporting casualties, there were contractor and civilian casualties, but of American troops, in the 20 years we were at war, only 2,500 of them were killed. There were a lot of people wounded, but only 2,500 of them died in 20 years. That's the amount of American soldiers that died on the first day of D-Day. It's not even close. The comparison is not even close. Like for what our military does today versus what they had to do back then. They gave us a privilege, a volunteer military that has continued to be sufficient to provide safety and security.
That's powerful. Well stated. And wow, that also puts the events of D-Day are so ingrained in our history at this point, and we understand it to be a really substantial event, and the lives lost make it so. And that amount of loss in a single day compared to the 20 years of war. Wow. I think on that one, we don't have pitched battles of that size and scale. And we should be very grateful for that.
And understanding that I'm not only listing the 16 million who served, that entire generation of Americans fought that war. Sure, there's 16 million frontline soldiers who put boots to ground, but there are support personnel and civilians and a whole series of people who built that war machine, who funded it and supplied it. Everyone back home was building everything that we used for the war. And Roosevelt famously said that Detroit and the United States had become the arsenal of democracy because we equipped and funded and made the bullets and the tanks and everything else for not only our troops, but many of our allies as well. That level of unity that they went through, that entire generation, they had no choice but to do it. And with that sacrifice, they have given us a choice. We can choose to be united towards a common goal instead of having it thrust upon us like they did.
Looking to take your shop to the next level of quality service, team culture, and overall profitability? At the Institute, we provide personalized coaching that aligns with your goals of financial stability, excellent customer service, and employee satisfaction. Our priority is helping you establish significant and sustainable progress. We work with you to create strategies that reduce the stress of running your business, improve your quality and performance, and optimize your profitability. Experience the benefits of professional coaching by visiting wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. Hey friends, as you know, I'm a proud member of the AutoFlow team, and let me tell you, we've changed how business is done for auto shops everywhere. We support your client experience before, during, and after the work is done. Imagine this: timely updates sent directly to your clients, branded digital vehicle inspections, and seamless communication from start to finish. That's why shops love AutoFlow. And hey, with those 5-star reviews rolling in, you'll wonder how you ever managed without us. Take an important next step and take your auto shop to the next level. Visit www.autoflow.com. Get on board with an AutoFlow trial. Say goodbye to the chaos and hello to streamlined efficiency with AutoLeap, the #1 all-in-one auto repair shop management software. No more headaches, no more wasted hours, just smooth operations and happy customers. But hey, don't take our word for it. Experience the magic for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Head over to AutoLeap.com and book a demo today. Let AutoLeap revolutionize the way you do business. Do it all with AutoLeap. AutoLeap, where efficiency meets excellence. AutoLeap is by your side every step of the way. Is your auto repair shop ready to fuel your customers' experience with an engaging loyalty app? AppFueled specializes in creating custom apps tailored specifically for auto repair businesses. Now, your customers can book appointments, view service history, and interact with their vehicle maintenance all from their smartphones. Don't miss out on connecting with your tech-savvy clientele. Join the App Store with AppFueled and elevate your shop's experience. Get started today by visiting appfueled.com and build your first app like a pro. Ready to boost your auto repair shop's success? ShopDog Marketing is here to help you. We put customers first using AI to create standout content that ranks. Harness the power of mobile first and voice search and let our expert team help you sweeten your revenue with more car count. ShopDog Marketing offers a free guide on using AI to drive more repair orders. Get your guide today and watch your auto repair shop thrive. Visit shopdogmarketing.com. That level of unity is not something that we're accustomed to anymore. The closest thing I think our generation at least would have of that would be September 11th. A lot of people that were in our contemporaries that were still young adults, typically at that time. I was senior in high school. And I do remember the moments after that. It was the tightest I've ever seen anyone in this country.
It definitely changed everything. It was our attack on Pearl Harbor. Nowhere near as significant in terms of the loss of life and the impact, but no less significant either. It is definitely our generation's tragedy.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's the closest thing that we can have to thinking of an element of history, I think, in our own contemporary experiences that gives us a sense of what it would be like for this last of this generation that was there during World War II and how they must understand. Like we're saying, don't forget about what happened in World War II. And you know the mantra, of course, for September 11th is that way. Wow. And I feel like it should be almost even heavier. What they were doing then, what the world was like then, what it was like for the massive amount of ships and aircraft and every other element that went into these massive, massive efforts. What we did doesn't even compare on scale and the way the global war on terror played out and anything else here. But we know this. We know we have to be the tangible interpreters of our current events. And so they are also our tangible interpreters now. So I guess this is the question I would ask next is, it was an unfortunate time of history, but we were fortunate that we got to meet these people in our lifetimes. We enjoyed that tangibility. So how do we talk about it with those people?
Well, at this point, with so few left, I'd say one of the first things is talk to them while you can. Like talk to World War II veterans while you can. I would encourage people to ask a veteran if they would like to talk about their military service, World War II or otherwise. Leave it to them whether or not they'd like to share. There's lots of reasons why veterans do and don't share. World War II vets and others sometimes talk about their experiences, sometimes they don't. And something to take into consideration, there's a lot of World War II veterans who do like to tell their stories, and there's a big reason behind it. So World War II veterans had a giant group therapy session when they came back, because that war was the last war where all of the troops were sent over in ships. So they fought and did all of this stuff, and then they were able to get on these boats, and then for 3 or 4 weeks or however long they had to move through ports, they got to have group therapy and they got to talk with one another and they got to normalize everything that they had just gone through. And not only that, like we said, it was such a large number of people that did it, that it normalized it. It created openness, it created communication, it created that feeling of safety so that they can. Every war after that had jets, which meant you could fight in another country and then one day take a flight and you're home before you've processed any of that, any of what has occurred, anything that has happened. And so like that shifted how veterans talk about it in modern terms. That's a huge part of it. You have to look at it as all veterans get bonded together through trauma, but like that entire generation was bonded together in common trauma. And in many ways, in my own opinion, they showed us how to heal as a country by talking and communicating about what we are going through with each other. Because it doesn't matter what you and I think, right? The world's crazy. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. It doesn't matter where you came from. Like, what is going on? And having that conversation, like, hey, it's rough for you, right? Yeah, it's rough for me too, is healing and can definitely bridge some of those gaps.
And it does. It takes time. And the world moves slower. Moving through the world was slower. Everything was slower. So you had more time, seems.
I think that a lot of veterans, it takes time for them to get to the point where they want to talk about things. And you also have to accept that there are some things that they're never going to want to talk about. And saying from like personal experience, like I have friends who've told me some of the things that they went through. And I'm just like, whoa, like I'm like, that's heavy. And I'm grateful that that was not my experience. And they might talk about it with another veteran, but a lot of times they have no desire to share that and to open up about that with others, because part of what a veteran does when you fight, when you serve, you are carrying the knowledge of war, and we are carrying it so that others don't have to do that. And what this World War II generation did is they showed us what they would do, the horrors of war that they carry, that knowledge that they would bear with them for the rest of their lives as living proof of what you will give for something you love. Everything, your mind, your body, your life, your hours, your days, your minutes.
Man, Evan, that's really powerful. As someone who's not served, but who loves history and wants to understand and honor this stuff, that's really moving. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I feel like I'm just doing my best to really appreciate what those veterans gave us. Modern day veterans, like I've done some cool things, have some cool stories in my life, but there's plenty of people I served with in the military who did, tons more than I did, served for the entire 20 years, lived it. And I guarantee you, not a single one of them believes that what they did was anything in comparison to what the World War II veterans went through. They crossed an ocean. They stormed a beach. They fought their way across Europe and they tore down a tyrant. It's mind-blowing.
It really is a tangible victory at the conclusion. Yeah.
They won. It wasn't like we have a lot of conflicts today that sort of ended like, all right, draw. Even like the war in Ukraine has it's in this like standstill sort of back and forth kind of thing. But like they won. They conquered the enemy. And like that is rare.
Yeah. And this is not our experience these days. Everyone has seen the exit of Afghanistan as one of the most heart-wrenching of all of the things I've ever seen in my limited lifetime. And that's just got to be even a whole new realm of hard.
It hasn't been easy. I definitely remember the day that it happened. And I was like on the phone texting a lot of my other buddies, like, are you watching this? Like, I've heard people liken it to the fall of Saigon during the Vietnam War, of just like watching, you just gave your life and all of your friends died and all your days, hours and minutes, like I said, and now it's just gone. There are a lot of reasons why wars have happened and been fought. And I don't want to get into like the political discourse on like how we get there, but it's hard because what every veteran wants in their heart is to be the last generation to serve, the last generation that's needed because of the world we live in.
That's beautiful. We're talking about the 80th anniversary of D-Day here and how this one hits different. Boy, this conversation can go all sorts of ways because we still have some things going on in the world that are seemingly we go in cycles, don't we?
Historically, it's true.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. Now, there's another experience that we were discussing too with, in particular, the World War II generation. We were specifically talking about the diversity of the experiences in that generation. There's so many different people. And we talked about the sense of unity already, but I mean, literally diverse in terms of the people.
Yeah. And that's one of those not perfect, but still great things that kind of occurred is that our country wasn't perfect during that time. There was racism and segregation there, even within the military itself. But even despite all of that, diverse populations, including Native Americans, including all different walks of life, men and women, like fought or served in the military in some capacity. And it was very much a unifying event, even if how we went about it and like how it was handled, one way or another, the politics of that time were not perfect. And I think that's a good lesson for today of like, you don't have to be perfect to still do great things.
No, exactly. And I think that there was an element to this too. And I think it's really in this, like we had this diverse military that was going in to liberate from fascism. And these people, they saw the camps, they saw the mass graves over time. They saw some terrible things. They have a chance to correct, but they also saw like, well, that's the direction some other things could go, perhaps. Is that something, am I off on that? It seems like
one of the things we're losing is that memory of the horrors of fascism, of tyranny, of oppression. They saw the camps and mass graves and the depravity and horror of what dangerous ideas can do. And what happens when humans fall to our worst impulses. And they witnessed it firsthand. It wasn't something that they heard. It wasn't even a story like us. We've heard it, right? We've seen television and media and all those things, but they were there. They saw it. They know that it was real and has existed and that all of those horrors occurred. And so like what that does to a generation for like what they will allow, what they will accept, what they believe is right, it shapes it. And it has shaped the country and what they created, what they came home and they created after that.
Yeah, and it was a long piece after that moment because no one wanted what they saw. That's something to be thankful for, I will say. I think that long piece, and that's the term that I understand was given to the time period that follows, really, truly an era of prosperity that we got to grow up in. As a child of the 80s, as I am, direct beneficiary of the fact that some horrible stuff, as you described too, like they take the experiences of that war, so that hopefully no one else had experience. For a lot of people didn't have to experience it again. That's really precious. I told a story about, we had a World War II veteran that frequented our shop. Being a history buff my whole life, I loved when I met those guys. And if they were the kind of people that would have the stories to share, it was always a precious moment for me. But there's this one guy, he came in, he was delivery driver for our parts company. It was D&E automotive parts, transmission parts at the time. They got bought up by another company called Transtar years later. But the guy's name, his nickname is Red. Red would come in and he always had a funny attitude when he came in. Just a really friendly guy. Always had a silly phrase, always had a joke to tell. The one he would always say, he comes in, he'd say this every time. Top of the morning to you, and the bottom half to me. And that was his little funny, quirky joke as he came in. But what's funny is like, as you put into context this, I'm thinking of Red, and wow, like that's kind of the spirit that you're describing. He's like, top of the morning to you, bottom half to me. And it's like, gosh, he's saying this as a joke in a so funny way, but now I'm thinking of it kind of like it's really sad. And I really like to say thank you again to that man. He was really brilliant. Made us laugh too and brought us parts.
I'm sure he was loved in his unit because everybody always had the funny guys who are always making jokes and always kind of keeping everybody encouraged and keeping everybody going when you're in it, for sure.
He was a gem. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like when I was talking to people, and I polled several friends on this during the week of D-Day, I was asking some people in our other Toastmaster Club as well. I asked them if they knew firsthand any World War II vets. And only 5 people that I talked to could tell me that they knew someone firsthand. They knew of someone in some cases, but actually someone that they interacted with that had been a World War II veteran. That was few and far between. I feel like that's what we're losing here. That my kids won't know and have firsthand experiences with those guys. Red told stories. After he knew us for enough years, he became a guy who talked about it. He wasn't one of the guys, he didn't wear the hat or anything, but it came out in a conversation like Grandpa. My grandpa was too young to serve in World War II, just barely. Oh, he wanted to get into a P-51 cockpit like you wouldn't believe, but he was too young. So he asked all the men from his generation, he asked if they served and expressed a great deal of appreciation for them. He didn't always do it with good tact. So you serve? Huh? Yeah. And he had some questions following up after that, but he read that question, and Red actually, yeah. Yep, I did. So really, and I'm listening to Red. I've known him for years. Tells a story about being on D-Day, third wave. I forget which beach now it was in the conversations. I was just entranced in listening to him talk about what he saw. And he didn't go into details or anything else, but he told enough that we got some context from a firsthand, tangible interpreter of those events. And that's just not the case anymore. He was not only in D-Day, but also the Battle of the Bulge. Told a story about getting in an airplane as a volunteer. You'll appreciate this. This guy, he learned slowly, he told us, to not volunteer for things when they ask, hey, I need a volunteer.
Yeah, I don't want to get voluntold. Yeah.
Well, he had to hop in this small, it must have been like a Cessna-sized little scouting propeller plane. Hopped in there. It was too foggy for other aircraft to do anything, but they turned the engine on, fly about treetop level, cut the engine power, listen for tanks. That was his job, to listen for tanks through the fog. Oh my gosh.
The ways that they utilized early technology and the things that they did, the modern military today we can do things in a very precise and a very controlled way because they didn't have that. They fought without it because they just figured it out. They made it work. And I met a World War II veteran who talked about D-Day, and after they landed and they took the beachhead, they had to build airports. So they had to build runways, and they said that they were just on the runway, and this plane was coming down with a bomb on it, and the bomb just fell off, started rolling, and was rolling towards them. And he's like, yeah, we just dove into the ditch, and then it rolled over the top of us, and my commander's like, well, get up and put it back on. It's insane. It's insane the things that they had to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, truly. Wow. So you must hear some of these stories, though. You did an internship when you were in school it was the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans as a counselor?
Yep, that is a state of Michigan veterans home.
Okay.
So it's not federal. It's one of the ones that the state of Michigan maintains. And I was the intern for the director of social work. And so I spent most of my time just going around and talking to veterans and helping them navigate their problems and their issues, which, if you know anything about veterans, they always can find problems and issues to talk about. We're good at that.
Well, first off, you're regular people. And then second of all, you've done some things in the world. My gosh. Wow. So it must be a lot of emotion that's involved in that stuff as an emotional intelligence expert. And that's always how I think of you first, interestingly.
I feel like you're always giving me too much credit.
Very high EQ, Evan. No, you've studied this.
So understanding things run on logic and human beings run on emotion. And so whatever experience, anybody that you interact with, you're going to be navigating a lot of that. And with veterans, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes there's a lot of emotion that they have suppressed and they have pushed down. And they're like, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to address it. And it comes out in 1,000 different ways, whether some of them good, some of them bad. And so having to navigate that, having to understand that their volatility is not directed at us. It is a symptom of what they've been through.
It's not about us. Not first. Not when you're working with other people. Important skill. And as we talk about in Toastmasters all the time, number one thing you learn how to do, everyone goes there to try to get better at speaking and improving their communication skills. And the first thing is, and Evan, you know it.
Listen better.
Yeah.
Listen and listen and listen. That you don't know what to say until you've listened enough.
But since not everyone talks about their experiences of these events, I guess where would we go and look for the archives?
And like I said, if you can talk to a veteran, ask them, totally encourage. That is where you're going to get the most real connection to it.
But don't pry, right? Yeah.
Yeah, don't pry, but ask if a veteran wants to share. Also, take a look. There is a lot of good content. There is a lot of good media. There are a lot of good organizations and projects like the Veterans History Project and the National World War II Museum. The American Legion also has a whole bunch of different programs and things that they've done to collect the stories, not only of World War II veterans, but modern day veterans as well. And that's a huge part of their charter to document for history, what has happened in the Great Wars. I tell everybody this, and most veterans, that I've interacted with who have seen this is watch Band of Brothers. Because Band of Brothers is based on the real hand accounts and the stories that they wrote down. And like they were actively involved in the production of that entire thing. You watch it and you're like, people did this. This is real. This was a real thing that happened. And every time, like I get choked up, I get emotional because what they did was incredible. It was true greatness. And it taught us that we can be great. No matter what happens, we can be great.
That's a powerful one. Band of Brothers, what a great recommendation. Read the book before the show was produced. Made my son watch the show. He happily did, as it's a wonderful production. I think like what you just described with that one of the cool things about that series, if you've never seen it, folks, it's definitely worth your time to see it. There's a documentary element at the beginning of each episode where it is the real guys.
Yeah. They're just like, yeah, here's what happened. And then here's our Hollywood recreation of it.
And there's the dramatization. Yes.
But even they say that like they nailed a lot of it, that they're like, wow, some of it was like the veterans talk about it was hard to watch after it came out and things like that.
I bet. Oh, yeah. No, what a well done story. The newest one, too, Masters of the Air, same producers on that one.
I'm still working my way through that one.
Yeah, dude, read the book On a Wing and a Prayer by Harry S. Crosby. He's the guy who was the navigator in that story. I read that book back when I was in middle school. When that came out, that show came out, I watched the first episode and I realized whose stories this show was based off of. Like, no, it's that book. I went and reread the whole book inside of a week, then finished watching that series. It was well done. Wow, the air war, huge. They were heavily involved before D-Day as well, and really intensely for a good year before that, pounding down that Luftwaffe. Amazing. People think the airmen had it easy. Not in that war. Not in that war.
I don't think anybody who was involved in the war had it easy.
Not at all. Evan, this has been a really great conversation here. I'm really grateful that we got to have this conversation, to record this and discuss these experiences. Is there anything that we're missing that we want to make sure we draw attention to from our chats before?
This is what it is, because what they did was so great. To like, oh yeah, they fought World War II. And like to summarize it like that is so, it seems almost not doing a disservice. I remember Patton had a famous quote. He said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn those men who died. Rather, we should thank God that they lived."
It's beautiful. That is a good quote. Boy, I don't think we can end on anything better than that. I guess the only other quote would be the one on the D-Day cemetery in Normandy. They call this the 51st state. First time I heard that reading some articles recently on this. Do you ever hear that? The 51st state, because so many Americans visit it regularly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. But
Colin Powell famously made a quote where he said, Americans could have imperialized, we could have taken all this land, and the only land that we've ever asked for was enough to bury our dead.
That's a good quote too. Man, on the cemetery in Normandy, it says, "Think not only upon their passing, remember the glory of their spirit."
Indeed.
Evan, I think you did a fine job remembering their spirit with me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I think we're going to have you back a few more times, and certainly some of our other friends from our Toastmasters Club. We know we're going to get Shane on here talking about improv and some other things too. Not every conversation is going to be reflective and aimed to remember, but I think this was an appropriate one to have at the time of history we're in and the recent events of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So, Evan, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Anytime.
You've been listening to Speak Up, Effective Communication with Craig O'Neill on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Craig on your favorite podcast listening app and on his YouTube channel. Let him know what you'd like him to speak up about. Craig is all for advancing the automotive service aftermarket.